Today I'm starting my first seeds of the season. Onion seeds, forget-me-nots, and columbine. These are all slow-growing plants that benefit from an early start indoors, especially in cooler climates. I garden here in Halifax, just outside of Halifax. We're zone 6A. And let me just show you really quick what it looks like outside. So I'm definitely in a cool climate, so starting these seeds early gives me a head start. I'll walk you through how I sow each one, what they need to germinate well, and when they can be transplanted outside. All right, I'm starting with onion seeds. Now, last year I started with onion sets, and it didn't go very well. They didn't bulb up very well. Now, I also had a soil issue, but between that and using sets might not have been the best strategy. So this year, I've decided to start from seed. I chose Walla Wallas. They're a long day onion, which if you're in Canada or in the northern US, the long day varieties are the types that will bulb up better. If you're in the middle or the south of the US, you'd be looking at short day or intermediate. And I'll put a link below to the description of what all of that means. But because I'm in Canada, I typically don't worry about that because it's always a long day onion that I need to grow. So starting them indoors now gives them the time they need to form good bulbs later. Now, I don't use seed starting mix. I prefer using regular potting soil. I feel like it holds moisture better and it's just easier to work with. I've moistened the soil before filling my containers. I'll moisten them again once I get them all filled up. So it needs to be evenly damp, not wet, so not dripping wet. And then I'm also using red solo cups. I find they're budget friendly. They've got the depth that onions would need, and I cut little holes in the bottom for drainage. I just find it super easy. And you can pack in the seeds. I'm basically going to be sprinkling in a handful of seeds in each of these cups. And they're easy to split up later. So you don't need to put like one onion seed per individual pot or individual cell in a seed tray. So let's get going. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill them all like this. I'll moisten them again just to make sure that there's enough moisture there. I'll be sprinkling the seeds in the top, and then I'll lightly cover with about 1/4 inch of soil just to make sure that they don't go anywhere. All right, so I've filled up all the cups, moistened them a little bit more. So you can see they're a little more damp now. And now I'm going to add the seeds to the top of the cups. I'm just pouring them into my hand here. And I have a 2 foot by 8 foot raised bed. And I'll be planting, these are Walla Wallas, and you're supposed to leave about 4 to 6 inches between. So doing the math, if I've got 2 feet across, that's 24 inches. I can fit 4 across, and then 8 feet is 96 inches. And if I wanted to separate them about 6 inches apart, that would be about 16. So I've got 16 times 4, which is 64. So what I'm going to do, I have 7 cups. I'll probably just do about 10 or 12 per cup. And I'm not going to count them out individually, you guys. I'm just going to eyeball it. Oops. And just sprinkle them on the top here. Roughly, it's perfectly okay. And then I'll separate them when it comes time to transplanting them outside. I'll be able to split them up. Apparently it's quite easy to do. I've never done this part with onions. I've always used sets before. So I've done this. I'll do the outside first. And apparently they're pretty tough. They're really hardy. So I will separate them and transplant them later. I'm excited. And I did some research just because I didn't have very good success with sets last year. So I felt like I needed another plan. And I watched a video and it explained that sets are, what was it, the second year onion? And that they don't typically form as large a bulb as starting it from seed. So I am optimistically, I think I need more here and more in the middle. Optimistically, I'm gonna try, actually I don't know if I put any more, let me put some more in the middle. Starting from seed, and we'll see how that goes, if it's better than last year. And then last year I also had a soil issue in several of my beds, so between that and using sets, I feel like it wasn't a winning combination there. So between starting from seeds, I'm hoping I'll have better luck. And at least this way I get to start them indoors. It's a little more, I guess, more of a controlled environment. I'm just adding a few more to that middle one here. Let me just do that real quick. I don't think I added them. And I have two more. All right, so next thing is I'm gonna top these all off with about 1/4 inch of soil just to make sure that they're not going anywhere. And I'll give them a good water. I'm gonna water from the bottom, which is also the recommended practice. And then we'll see. I've got here, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see what's going on here. I installed my rack, I installed my lights. These are my grow lights. Here, I'll come back a little bit so you can see what's going on here. And I like to attach my lights, and they are stationary, so I don't have to move the lights. What I do is I find all kinds of different boxes. We all know we've got stacks of Amazon boxes lying around, and then I'll just either get a bigger box or a smaller box, depending on what I need, and then I'll just lift the seeds and then change the box out. I just find it much easier versus having to, raise and lower the lights all the time. That's just me. I found it much easier to do it that way. It's not the most elegant solution, but it works for me. All right, I'm gonna finish up with the onions and then we're gonna get started on the next batch. All right, second batch of seeds are forget-me-nots. Now, forget-me-nots are cool season flowers that germinate well in late winter. So starting them now gives them plenty of time to size up before spring. I'm using an open tray for both of the flower varieties I'm starting today. The left side is going to be forget-me-nots, the right side will be columbine, but we'll get to that in a second. And their seeds are really small, so they're going to stay on the surface of the soil and I'm going to press them in. All right, let me show you how tiny they are. They're like really small. So what I'm going to do is just scatter them onto the surface. They prefer cooler temps, so we don't need a heat mat for this. Once the seedlings have 2 to 3 sets of true leaves and the hard frosts are behind us, we can transplant them outside. Now, forget-me-nots are frost tolerant, but not freeze-proof. So a light frost is fine, but frozen soil can damage their shallow roots. And I'll harden them off for about a week before putting them outside. And then I am just gonna, so this is pre-moistened potting soil. Again, I don't use seed starting just because I feel like make sure I don't pick up any on my hands. I feel like the potting soil just retains moisture a little better. It's less fluffy. So I just find it a little bit more substantial. And seedlings sprout fine. They don't need seed starting mix to germinate. And I've had good success with just using potting soil. I use the Pro Mix all-purpose. I'll put a picture up on the screen so you can see what I use. And I don't know if you noticed it earlier, but I dump a bunch of it in this little, it's not a Tupperware, but it's like a little plastic bin. I keep it in the area where I seed up my stuff, so I don't have that huge bag lying around. Anyway, I just find it easier to do that. All right, let's move on to Columbine. So Columbine is another slow-growing flower, benefits from an early start, and the right half of this tray is going to be for Columbine. Now, I'm doing a bit of an experiment with Columbine because they say that Columbine requires cold stratification, and I'm going to show you that process separately. I'm going to record that. It's basically moistening a paper towel, putting your seeds on it, putting that whole thing in a Ziploc, and leaving them in the fridge for 2 to 3 weeks, which it kind of mimics what happens in winter. And Columbine seeds have a better rate of germination if you do that. I've been storing my seeds in the refrigerator, but they're not moist, they're not wet. So that's called cold, dry stratification, which it's good, but it's not the same, or so I'm told, it won't be as successful as if we're doing it when they're moist. So I'm going to do it 3 ways this year. I'm going to do them in here, which is just regular seeding them in soil with seeds that have been in the fridge for a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. I'm going to do them with the moist stratification. I've prepared the paper towel. I'll show you the clip of that as part of this video. So we're going to do them those 2 ways, and then I'm going to direct seed some outside in the spring, and we'll see which set does better. I'm kind of curious about that. Now these seeds, Columbine seeds, need light to germinate, so I'm just going to pour some in my hand here. These are a little bit bigger than the forget-me-nots. Hold on, I'll show you in a second. So these are the Columbine seeds. They're a little bit bigger than the forget-me-nots, and these ones need light. So I'm not going to cover them with soil. I'm going to sprinkle them same as I did with the forget-me-nots, and then press them in to the surface of the soil. And Columbine prefers cooler temperatures as well. Germination can take 3 to 4 weeks, and that's normal. And then once the seedlings are established and nighttime temperatures stay above freezing, they can be transplanted outdoors. And I'll harden these off, same as the forget-me-nots. This whole tray is going to go through the same process. And Columbines do best in partial shade or morning sun. Here, I'm just going to press these in, and I'm not going to cover them with anything. And I'm going to make sure I didn't pick up any seeds on my hand when I did that. Are we good? We're good. Okay, and now I am going to moisten them just a bit with my spray bottle here. Just to give them, and then I'll move them to my tray, to my rack. Let me show you what that looks like. So here we are. We've got the onion seeds, and we've got the forget-me-nots, the Columbine. My lights will go on. I'm going to put them on a 16 hour on, 8 hour off, just because all seedlings do need a period of darkness. It's not good to have, thinking that you can just keep them under lights 24/7. That's not good. They actually do need a rest period. So I'm going to do that. And I've got it on a timer, so I don't even have to think about it. It goes on at, I think I put it on at, is it 6 a.m. or 7? I think it was at 6. So 6 a.m. and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I turn it off at 10 p.m. So the lights go off overnight, essentially, which kind of mimics what a normal day would be like if they were outside. So for Columbine, these are the seeds that I'm growing. This is actually a pretty big packet of seeds. They do suggest doing a cold, moist stratification method. Now, I've been storing my seeds in the refrigerator with the rest of my seeds in a Ziploc bag. But for Columbine, they say that to increase germination rates, you should cold, moist stratify. Kind of to mimic what would normally happen over the winter. with the freeze thaw cycle. So what I've done, I've moistened a paper towel and I've sprinkled some seeds on there. I'm going to wrap that up and just stick it in a Ziploc bag, put them in the fridge for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then seed them into a seed tray. What I'm also going to do today, though, is sow some seeds without doing this process. Just sow them directly into a seed tray, and we'll see what happens with the germination. I mean, the seeds have been in the fridge for several weeks now, but it's a dry stratification, which may or may not. I think the only difference, from what I understand, is that it'll be a more staggered or slow germination, whereas this one, the moist stratification method, gives an increased chance of. That's basically you're waking up the seeds from dormancy. So we'll see what happens, and I'll try both ways. I'm also thinking of actually direct sowing outside when the time comes. So we're going to do like a 3-way test with these columbine seeds. So what should happen, I think the forget-me-nots will probably sprout first. That's 1 to 2 weeks. Then I have a thread here. Then the onions, and then the columbine isn't going to germinate for at least 3 to 4 weeks. So that's normal. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. And then we just wait for the temperatures to warm up. And as soon as the temperatures look good, I'll start hardening them off for about a week or so, and then get them outside in probably late spring, probably April, May, probably May. Onions for sure in May. Forget-me-nots and columbine, we'll have to see. And then once I get those ones out of the fridge, I'll create a half tray maybe of that, and just sow those. In 2 or 3 weeks, I'll do the same process that I just did. It's just the seeds have been in a cool, moist place in the refrigerator in a Ziploc for a few weeks, and I'll sow them the same way, and we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see. All right, everybody, I'm super excited. It's the first seeds of the year. Finally, it feels good to be it feels good to be growing things again. I forgot to mention that I do cover them with the humidity dome up until most of them germinate. Now I realize that these are going to germinate before these, so I'll probably figure out a way to keep these ones uncovered and this one covered, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And then for this, I just use like a plant saucer, and then I covered it with another one, just to give them some humidity at the top there. If you're thinking about starting your seeds or planting your garden, I would love to know what you're doing. Please leave a comment below if you liked what you saw today. Don't forget to subscribe or like the video, and happy gardening, everybody.